Oh no, but aren't you guys gonna like PM the other stuff like that?
What?
He wants you to call him.
For round
Yeah, today fourth round, we must know.
Sorry.
Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth and final silent round of MARAdula. Opening gov, we have Taylor's JK, opening MARAdula Oblongata. Closing government, we have
MARAximus.
Closing up, we have somebody sing it. On motion about the Republican Party actively opposing the alternate right, we invite Prime Minister Stark.
Who support white nationalism, oppose immigrants, support things, and do not support things like things to sort. All right, so mainstream Republicans or conservatives are the opposite of that. Yeah, opposite of that. So two main arguments today. One on why it's in the Republican Party, like Donald Trump, or without someone from the alternate right. First argument on why it's an incentive of the Republican Party. So, to achieve some sort of ideal. So mainstream right-wingers oppose Donald Trump, which means that even if opposes, they don't overtly oppose immigration, nor do they overtly oppose political correctness. They are less extreme than the alternate right. Even if they have some sort of racial bias, it's more likely to come out of genuine fear rather than hatred that the alternate right oftentimes spews. Thirdly, these people are people or people that are willing to listen to, not simply bigots that will not listen to other perspectives. So these parties oftentimes want votes, they want power, like any political party. Given that, they will want the Republican Party to have a good public perception. Why? Why is it so important? Because Trump has ruined it for them. Because of Donald Trump, the Republican Party has now So right now, we have people misrepresenting the Republican Party. And because Donald Trump basically is so prominent, oftentimes even those moderate people, those people that aren't extreme or oftentimes get tied to the same vitriolic as Donald Trump. On one side, when we oppose the alternate right, is we revert the party and therefore its perception and also core to a more acceptable form, meaning one that is more conforming to the traditional or mainstream ideals of the right wing, which means that they are understanding they do have different goals, but those goals are democratic as opposed to Donald Trump's undemocratic stances. For example, he very famously said that he would not admit to people in the Republican Party who are more open in discourse, it's more likely that the extreme are more acceptable and more understood, are going to be accepted by people on the ground. The Republican Party, to achieve their ideals, tended to oppose this extreme, racist, bigoted Trump. But before that closes.
Alt-right is born out of the siege mentality because they feel like everyone is attacking them.
Yeah.
How does isolating more moderate?
They're not literally telling you rid of all the negative characteristics that you now have. Because when you oppose these characteristics, when you overtly, there are people in the right think with reason. There are people in the very blindly. We think that it is that point that people buy into the Republican Party. Secondly, on how Republican presidency or rule will be better without someone like Donald Trump. So Trump has really just pushed the boundaries of indecency and how much it is against he said the shareable alternate right. What does this mean? Donald Trump has done many objectively harmful things. Firstly, Donald Trump has taken a huge leap in normalizing sexual assault. Sure, they may say that there are going to be a lot of reasonable people, left-wingers, moderate people who don't buy into Donald Trump's reasoning of why sexual assault is okay, but nevertheless, he empowers the biggest in this, the biggest that already exists. He empowers all the people that already assault women. He also empowers people that may not have otherwise fallen into that characteristic. No. So people like Trump also relies more on feelings as opposed to facts. We think it sets a horrible precedent. Why? Because when it comes to things like answering a very important question, you're supposed to make decisions based on objective facts instead of how you feel. For example, when it comes to things like nuclear weapons, that clearly affects the life of millions and your diplomacy with other countries. Donald's like, we'll nuke the shit out of them without really taking into account the consequences of those things. To people like Donald Trump in the alternative right, all they want to do is consolidate power. They want to consolidate their superiority of their race, their gender. We don't think it does any good to a democracy, especially when Trump overtly praises dictators like Putin and Kim Jong-un, calling those people strong leaders. Because the problem with immigration in the US is people overstaying, not people believe people can just fly over the wall. It's really that simple. So compared to this, someone like Bush making bad war decisions when it comes to intervention is way better than a Trump rule, where the leader does not bother with calculations and just deals with temperament. So what you have is vitriolic rule. Basically, you have someone who is a loose cannon, doesn't care about facts, is angry all the time, spewing hatred and empowering bigots.
Thank you for your speech. Start the opening of the strength and clear to the media possibility.
Yeah.
Chair, this debate is about a strategic position of the Republican Party in terms of retaining power as well as maintaining support for policies that address issues that they fundamentally believe in. We think that just by opposing the alt-right and side-opening government, the alt-right don't fundamentally disappear or immediately disassociate from the Republican Party. This debate also centers around how we interact with the alt-right and how we bring them to the middle as well. We think open government only want to talk about, number one, the overall branding of the Republican Party. But where they where they come short is that they fail to analyze the type of voter base that Republican Party has, the general sentiment of the Republican voter that we have right now, of anxiety of not being heard by the Washington elites, of they feel left out and their voices are not being addressed by mainstream Republican candidates as well. So we think abandoning the alt-right wouldn't be a good overall branding for the Republican Party, particularly for the type of voter base that they want to target. They cannot argue a very general and generic case about branding of a political party. They needed to argue in context of the type of voters we're looking at, particularly these conservative Republican voters. Secondly, we think this doesn't make very much sense. They argue largely about how much they don't like Trump and a lot of Trump bashing on their side. But this debate literally takes place 3 days before the election, which we are not sure how much are able to election, right? So we don't think this debate is only about Trump, but in general leadership, as well as people who don't align with the alt-right and what positions that these people particularly should take. We think that a large portion of the Republican parties have their views aligned with the alt-right. What we mean is that they're not as extreme in the way in which the alt-right perceive those things to be, but immigration concerns, as well as concerns about losing jobs, are similar notions that the Republican parties have. So that means that the issues of the alt-right are only able to pull people towards the alt-right more in the Republican Party right now, are able to pull people back. So what does this mean? This means that, for example, immigration, cheap labor, displacing white Americans and things like that, because not all white Americans are privileged to begin with. This seeds the fear and the anxiety that most of the Republican voters have, and their large sympathy towards the alt-right as well. There are concerns, they fear the concerns not being heard by the Washington elite. So what do we do in this debate? We have 3 objectives in this debate. Our objectives is that, one, we want the Republican Party to maintain control over institutions in America, institutions at the Congress, Senate, City Council, and so on. To achieve this, we say we need widespread support from the Republican base, and we need even more general support from the Republican base. Secondly, we also want to talk about making better decisions for the Republican Party and overall ensuring that the Republican Party is able to make decisions that are smarter and more moderate for them as well. Let's talk about the direct clash with the public perception, right? So we want to talk about what opposing the alt-right means. We want to tell you that the alt-right is a significant voter base all across America that has run under the rhetoric that Washington has been undermining and talking down to voters. That's why they oppose things like political correctness or the political language, the way in which people talk to their voters as well. So this means that opposing or directly telling the alt-right that they are wrong only feeds their further concerns as to the Republican Party being part of the persisting problem of their concerns not being heard. We think this only empowers the alt-right and brings a lot more people to the alt-right. They're very effective in recruiting people over the years using social media. Is a very vital empower their rhetoric. What does this mean? One, you'll lose key positions when it comes to Senate, when it comes to City Council, and so on. Why? Because the alt-right will either split the vote. What this means is that the alt-right might field their own candidate and then vote for that candidate as opposed to a Republican candidate in general. Because they now understand that the Republican Party has fundamentally alienated them, so their vote will never go to a Republican candidate, but will go towards either an alt-right candidate or they will not vote at all. This will mean a couple of things. Either an alt-right candidate will win the election because of the massive amount of alt-right voter, or a Democrat will win the election because the Republican vote is being split. Either way, the Republican Party won't be able to stand a chance in that election because of the vote splitting that happened. Why is this really, really bad? Because this is also really important because the race is extremely close in most elections as well. This is also really bad because what this means is means that one, the Republican Party obviously loses votes, they're unable to retain power. But secondly, if an alt-right Republican candidate is being elected, that candidate is far more likely to be a lot more extreme, wouldn't listen to the mainstream Republican candidate, and far more likely to be the face of Republican, as in a lot more people will define conservatism based on alt-right candidates compared to based on mainstream Republican candidates. So conservatism as a whole will get a bad branding under their side.
Yes,
so how will we change that, right? We think that it's far under our side. What we do is that we are able to subsume the alt-right into the Republican candidate, into the Republican parties. How do we do that? One, through continuous engagement with the alt-right. So the alt-right realizes that their concerns are being heard. This reduces their ability to spread their anxiety and fear about immigration and their anxiety and fear about the white people being left out and things like that. We think that through continuous engagement, they are able to either be more confident in the Republican Party and vote for Republican candidates, which means that Republican candidates who are mainstream are being elected and better able to create policies that are a lot more moderate in comparison to if the alt-right was in charge of the Senate. This means that the Republican candidate also face less pressure because they feel the alt-right realize that they don't need to pressure the Republican candidate as much because the alt-right feel that their concerns are being heard by the Republican candidate and they are able to address those issues. We think that the mainstream Republican candidate are more likely to take a less extreme position compared to an alt-right candidate, and make better and more strategic political decisions overall for the Republican Party. We think that at the end of this speech, what we need to realize that the strategic position of the Republican Party is based upon how they deal with this alt-right and whether or not they're able to bring the alt-right to the middle. And that can only happen when the alt-right don't feel attacked, targeted, and isolated for the Republican Party we're proud to oppose.
Thank you for that speech. To continue the debate, can I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister? Here.
We agree that this debate is about who better represents the Republican Party, but we think that it's not just that. We believe that this debate is also which side empowers the choice of a voter and allows for an individual to be open to their political stance as well as having proper representation of the ideology that they have, right? In my speech today, I would answer three main questions. Why is it principally justified for the Republican Party to oppose the alt-right movement? Number two, we'll tell you why our world we have better election processes. Before lastly, why our world while their world would further increase the radicalization of conservatism today. But some rebuttals before I carry on. Because we heard from opposition that Republican parties will not benefit from this new rebranding of what the ideologies are. In the current status quo, we think that there are many former supporters of conservatism and of the Republican Party that have left or chosen to opt out of political activity because they hate who represents them. They hate that the Republican, when people think of a Republican, they immediately think of a person from the alt-right movement. In our world, the Republican Party loses voters who had extreme conservatism. We are okay with this. If we lose people who had these extreme means of their conservatism, but we think we gain people who formally do not like the extreme stance, but rather who are more open and are more open to sort of mainstream conservatism that we think is more accommodating to the world that we live in today. But we also think that in the long run, the Republican Party would also benefit from this, considering that they can finally officially detach themselves from this radicalization, the radical narratives that they have. The fact that they will not be seen as extreme, the fact that they will not be seen as, gay-hating Catholics. We think that this is a narrative that will be broken in the long run, which means that their political party will be seen as more credible, which means they are more likely to have political outreach or more political say in what in the choice of certain people, right? But we also heard that the alt-right movement have more capabilities to gain more followers than the Republican Party. We don't see why this is true. Considering the Republican Party, the traditional political party, would obviously have more resources. They would have more money. They would have more political authority, political figures that support them. They would have more political outreach in that sense, more media coverage on their debates and stuff like that. We think as a result, they would gain more. Their capability to gain more followers is not one that is better than the Republican Party, right? But we sit down. But let's mention about their alternative that they have, because they said that they would rather have this affiliation together, like they would always engage with the alt-right and the Republican Party. We think that this is completely harmful to not only the Republican Party but to people, to election processes in general. We think that having the alt-right movement and having that affiliation with them is one that's harmful, because we think that first they say that when they feel as though their whole fear that they do not hear their concerns, that finally they won't feel as isolated. We think this is not true, that they will only drop that fear, only drop that hatred the moment their concerns are actually acted out. That means that whatever laws and whatever regulations that they want to be placed out will have to be enacted for them to finally drop that concern that they had previously, right? But we also think that having that affiliation with the alt-right movement means that more people would listen and follow suit and opt in to really extreme radicalization or conservatism. We think that the affiliation of the alt-right and the Republican Party would be one that has more influence, and that influence is harmful because it would probably perpetuate more extreme radicalization of election processes. But to my first point, why is it principally justified for the Republican Party to oppose this? We think that a political party, in essence, should represent ideologies that they believe benefits people. Historically, maybe these people were mainly white or Christian, or carry huge levels of nationalism. The Republican and historically, the Republicans made laws to cater towards these people. But in the current status quo, we see that these demographics have changed. There's more diversity in race, in religion, in culture. There's different stakeholders as to who the Republican Party should cater towards. The Republican Party now has the incentive to once again represent the ideologies that cater towards these different group of people. Now that the stakeholders are different, we think that the ideologies have changed. Not changed completely, but rather become more accommodating to the world today. As a result, we think that our alt-right movement follows conservatism that is long dated, that is outdated, that is one that is no longer in the best interest of the Republican Party in general, in the best interest of the political party that should cater towards its people, right? Should the party feel misrepresented by a group of people that say that they're part of the Republican Party, they should do all that they can to oppose this and make sure that they get the proper kind of representation that they have. But before I move on to my second argument, yes.
So opposing the alt-right means an outright rejection of the fear that they feel, and that the alt-right feel, as well as a lot of Republicans believe as well. We will definitely split the vote and lose power on your side. So how are you able to continuously maintain power for the Republican Party?
See, we understand that maybe there's a lot of alt-right supporters, right? But we think that the Republican Party should prioritize their ideologies more, meaning getting rid of extreme radicalization of their ideas. This may mean that they lose votes, but if it means that their ideologies are kept more to their interest, that this means that they have ideologies that cater towards people, this is the trade-off that we're willing to make if it means that the political party is one that's more for the people, right? To the second point, how do we better election processes in general? So let's just talk about what an ideal election looks like. Please sit down. An election process is one that exists in the world, where there's not like an overriding bias, one that involves strong, meaningful discourse and discussions that make proper decisions, right? One that allows people to speak freely about their political stance, and most importantly, one where results show actual sentiments of certain people, right? In the current status quo, we think that this is completely fallen. There's a liberal bias in the world, and it's created not because the ideologies are bad, rather because the representation of Donald Trump is one that people completely hate, right? We think that conservatives are shamed or radicalized even more, right? as a result, we think there's very little discourse because people not only openly speak out about their stance, but rather there's this huge disparity between a Democrat and Republic, and it's fueled by poor representations of certain parties that people hate the Republican Party not because of their ideology, but rather because of the more visible acts of extreme radicalization in that sense. Right? We think that as a result, elections have given results that are not acceptable at all. That's one that does not fully reflect the sentiments of people. How do we mitigate these harms? Under our world, the Republican Party and its supporters would look more open. There will be less extreme, less seen as bigots. And we think there's benefits because that people are more likely to engage in political discourse in that sense. There will be better discussions, leading to better choices overall. So the benefit is that people will either change their opinions when they change their opinions on certain things, or they will at least have more justified opinions on things rather than based on materialistic or radical ideologies, right? But secondly, we think that Donald Trump and the poor representations of the Republican Party would be less, so that strong liberal bias would also be less. That means that the choice the person makes would more be made of a personal judgment and with less external forces influencing what they have. So what have I told you today? I've told you how the affiliation with the alt-right party would be one that's to the detriment of the Republican Party. But as a whole, in terms of the election processes and the voters that take part, we think that they would make better decisions under our world. I'm very proud to propose.
Thank you for that speech. Can we hear from the Deputy Leader of Opposition, please?
Can I have a voice? I'm waiting for sure.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, the problem with the government bench in this particular debate is a lack of context in which how the real politics of America happens in the status quo. And we think that's exceptionally important in this debate. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on rhetoric, but I'm going to go straight to my substantive material in this debate. The first of which I want to clarify is in regards to the context, because I think this is exceptionally important in this debate especially. 3 levels of contextualization that I think decidedly side the debate for the opposition. The first, ladies and gentlemen, is in regards to where do these concerns in regards to the alt-right movement stem from. The first of which, that across the decades, globalization, free trade causes like NAFTA, ladies and gentlemen, has caused middle class to lower income jobs to flood out of American society and vastly hit white middle class individuals that constitute the vast majority of the American voter base, ladies and gentlemen. Mechanization in the 21st century also means that massive amounts of white populace have lost their jobs. That means that the context is set here is a large amount of economic anxiety that's made based on neoliberal economic policies that's supported by both the Democratic and Republican establishment. But secondly, is in regards to immigration, that racism is just a byproduct of larger economic and political concerns. That wages are depressed because immigrants who come in and flood in are more likely to take lower pay in comparison to their local counterparts, means that everyone else, the white middle class, have to compete for lower wages in that particular circumstance. That economic anxiety also pervades within the alt-right movement as well as the Republican movement, fueling that particular sentiment. But the last and final thing is to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that a Harvard study, and this is quite reputable, ladies and gentlemen, that across the last decade, that political considerations of the voting populace have almost zero correlation with how Republicans and Democrats vote in Congress and Senate, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that it's indicative that Congress's approval rating is at the single digits when it was previously at 40 to 30% goes to show the disenchantment with the political elites in the status quo in this particular context. all that contextualization tells you is that the Republican Party is at an exceptionally weak position to be able to vie and compete for a popularity contest within a very angry population, ladies and gentlemen, that's disenchanted with the lies, disillusions that they have with the Republican establishment on that side of the house. That's why Jasmine's argumentation in this party debate is important. In the comparative whether or not the alt-right is going to go away nicely, ladies and gentlemen, or is going to be able to capitalize on the anger of what is a widespread, vast majority of Republican, as well as sometimes independent voters in this part of context, we think they haven't proven to us sufficiently why that's likely in this debate. But the second thing I want to look at, ladies and gentlemen, is the strength of the alt-right. I think they severely underestimate the strength of the alt-right on that side of the house. And the reason for this, and the reason why it's important, is because while it may be negligible to you in the status quo, it is negligible only because we are consistently engaging with that movement, stymieing their particular anger and making sure that we reduce the amount of political ammo like Jasmine talked about on our side of the house. But the fact that Trump won a landslide historic victory, ladies and gentlemen, in the Republican primary on the back of alt-right support, ladies and gentlemen, and secondly, the vast majority of people are disenchanted in their voter base, goes to show that you certainly shouldn't underestimate the alt-right's ability to utilize social media and the internet, ladies and gentlemen, to galvanize what is 70%, ladies and gentlemen, of the alt-right supporters are younger individuals, which means you certainly shouldn't underestimate their ability to get things done on that side of the house. Which means the conclusion of this first issue is that we certainly, ladies and gentlemen, the alienation of what could potentially be a dangerous enemy, and like they said, an extreme enemy, is the height of folly on the side of government. The second thing I want to look at is it possible for the Republican Party to be able to reform, look for new voters, and now, ladies and gentlemen, like they say, because I've denounced the alt-right movement, suddenly a whole new bank of voters will be open to me because I'm seen as nice. That is completely unrealistic on that side of the house. Because first and foremost, the stakeholders that you're talking about in the quickly varying and quickly diversifying immigrant population of United States of America right now, oftentimes is in direct contradiction with what are the core fundamental ideologies of the Republican Party. Things like a more restrictive immigration policy is not fundamentally racist, ladies and gentlemen. It's a sensible economic policy in many countries, but it's fundamentally and diametrically opposed to a growingly diverse amount of immigrant population. So you'll never get that voter base there. Secondly, the welfare programs that immigrants like, because oftentimes immigrants start off very rough. Republicans prioritize free trade and a lack of welfare, ladies and gentlemen. Diametric of opposition there. But also that Democrats have the inertia of decades upon decades of painting even reasonable Republicans, ladies and gentlemen, as being racist, goes to show that even the newfound diversified people that you're talking about aren't going to vote for you, or at least in their best case scenario, aren't going to vote for you, ladies and gentlemen, in the next few decades at least, because it takes decades to reform a party and realign their objectives on that side of the house, ladies and gentlemen. That means in the meantime, while you're waiting for that reformation, ladies and gentlemen, can you risk splitting that voter base and subject yourself to all the harms, loss of leadership, and finally loss of power that we talked about under our side of the house? They need to tell us why that change will be immediate. If not, the Republican Party is likely to die while waiting for your desired change on that side of the house. We think that's exceptionally important. Before I go further, I'll give closing as well.
Don't you think the alt-right movement, who are made up of middle to upper class citizens, rejected the mainstream conservatism because of a genuine identity for white superiority instead of fear and anti-establishment?
No. But oftentimes, the views that the alt-right movement and mainstream conservatism have a fundamental similar base, which are things like restrictive immigration policy, things like the ability to speak out against terrorism, ladies and gentlemen, and things, and for example, nationalism generally, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we think even though they may have a more extreme way of expressing it, there are core fundamental tenets that still align with mainstream conservatism that we shouldn't abandon. The last thing I want to look at, ladies and gentlemen, is in regards to what happens and how do we get things. At least now we can vote for better policies. Never telling us whether or not you'll get those passed on that side of the house. Needless to say, whether or not you'll even be in office on that side of the house. But fundamentally, ladies and gentlemen, that under least Republicans will still get immigration policies. At least Republicans will still vote for a more lean government that doesn't spend too much. All these things at least appeal to the alt-right voter significantly more in comparison to a Democrat that might win office on that side of the house and win the majority. What happens to the alt-right populace when Democrats are able to dictate policy to have more flooding of immigrants, things like more welfare programs, things like more larger governments and things like that, that creates a significantly higher amount of political ammo for the alt-right movement to galvanize itself in order to take over the Republican Party on that side of the house. Because giving up to the Democrats or making yourself seem weak and not having a political plan in order to control the halls of power also means giving the argument to the alt-right movement to say the Republican Party has failed us. They can't get our objectives for us. They are weak. They're conceding to the Democrats. They're not different at all. They're part of the establishment. They all want the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. They don't have to be actually logical or reasonable, ladies and gentlemen, but that's the argument you create on that side of us. At least under our side, ladies and gentlemen, you have a Republican that's more able to get those things, ladies and gentlemen, hold presidents, either Clinton or Trump, accountable, at least be able to bring those voters to the middle. We think we would rather have that world, though it not be a perfect one. Thank you very much.
The immediate reaction.
Thank you for that speech. As part of the closing part, can I have the member of government?
Oh, sorry. Here.
What we must understand is that the attainment of power comes at a cost. But what cost is a party willing to bear when it sacrifices perhaps not the tenets of the value, but the execution of those values, as well as other individuals that it could potentially win by trying to navigate away from problematic rhetoric that comes with the alt-right party? Ladies and gentlemen, Closing Government will enter this debate by talking about the alt-right party. Why we think there needs to be an active opposition to it, and what are the actual outcomes when it comes to not only voters as well, but also including the efforts of reaching like a form of amendability as well as bipartisanship when it comes to Congress and Senate, because we think that opening government largely talk about Trump, and we agree with a lot of it, but I don't think there's a lot of nuance to the alt-right. Firstly, we think that movement, the reason why they rejected mainstream conservatism, ladies and gentlemen, and that's something that the Republican Party currently wants, is that it isn't based on an issue of anti-establishment or because they were scared. It's because they literally, no thank you, don't see the value of conservative values if they always have to account for minorities or diversity in attaining those values, ladies and gentlemen. Because the identity that the alt-right think is currently important is being white in nature. And I think that the alt-right currently is primarily formed by individuals who are middle to upper class, no thank you. And I think what it does is that often the outcomes that when it comes to conservative policies as well as the reach of it, often doesn't touch these individuals, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why they're very comfortable in making claims that perhaps the sort of values that we currently fight for shouldn't be targeted with these individuals because it's a lost cause, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, I think the presumption that exists in opposition bench is that you have a large majority of outright candidates that currently exist in status quo and one that we can always rely on to win in every district. I think the problem is that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this is true to begin with. Because if you look at the context of the United States, the alt-right association to Donald Trump was relatively new, even like after the reach of the popularity that he currently has. So I don't think in any way that it shows, calm down, that it shows to the individuals in status quo that they are the reason why. But what they do is they create a separation to what the Republican Party wants to identify themselves with and what Trump does. So that's why when the Republican machinery tells Trump to stop behaving in this way, he doesn't care because he has the alt-right party to back him up, and he says, I am finally free from the tentacles that are telling me to behave in a particular way. Ladies and gentlemen, let's note that in the context of the alt-right party, it has been said that you don't even have to be a foreign individual individual for it to even look at you in a particular way. It's literally your ethnicity, right? So I disagree with opening opposition that it is similar positions but just louder, ladies and gentlemen. Because we can agree to some small instances that perhaps they have similar economic concerns and immigration concerns. But here's the distinction that needs to be made in this debate, that when it comes to Republican parties, the decision for immigration policies, why it's legitimate is because it is based on economic concerns and the actual middle class. But when it comes to the alt-right parties supporting immigration policies, it's about active persecution of individuals who are not from the white groups, ladies and gentlemen. And we don't think that this is similar and consistent with the Republican Party. So I reject this notion that they're similar in nature. Even if they're similar in some small principles, I don't think the execution as well as the conclusion is the same. No, sit down. Secondly, I reject the notion that the alt-right movement was born out of siege mentality. I think they have always been consistent in their position in telling people, right? And we agree with them, they've always been around, ladies and gentlemen. But what we think they currently do in status quo is the fact that there are individuals who currently have faced fear and anxiety, and it's not just because they're anti-establishment, but also because they don't see any other viable alternative than Donald Trump. What the alt-right party has done is that they've currently exploited the fear and anxiety that individuals have in status quo. And I think what it does, it doesn't allow for any ability for the Republican Party to suddenly push the alt-right movement to some form of moderation, ladies and gentlemen. Notice that a lot of the argumentation for opening opposition elucidates so much power and control of the alt-right party, but doesn't tell you how they're going to suddenly moderate this position, right? I think if you believe that they have a large voter base and have been strong for years, I'm going to say that the current power balance between the Republican Party and the alt-right party is disproportionately against the favor of the Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen. Why do I think this is really important? Because I think the way in which we viscerally identify the Republican Party is to such extent. I think we government talk about understand what the Republican Party is currently to minorities been successful in pandering to only white individuals, ladies and gentlemen. What does this ideal elucidate? One, that you can never be able to moderate this group, and acknowledging some degree of popularity can exist, that you are never going to have a sudden shift in ideology, that you're going to have a sudden change in how they currently behave. Why is that problematic? I think what it does is that it doesn't break the conflation of the same shared ideals, because the presumption is we start off at the same point. It doesn't matter how you move beyond that, so long as we reach the same outcome, without noting the fact that active persecution of individuals is something that's currently problematic. No, thank you. But secondly, we think that we'll take the bullet and say that voters that support problematic positions shouldn't be the individuals that you currently rely on, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that Donald Trump winning is indicative of the entirety of Republicans in the United States, feeling like is it indicative of the climate of accurate climate of Republicans in the United States? In fact, we think that no, thank you. The Republican primary turnout in 2016 is the lowest in comparison to other forms of election. No, thank you. What we think is important, ladies and gentlemen, is to note that splitting voter base must also account for not breaking or splitting apart the party as well, ladies and gentlemen. How do we think the party is going to be broken apart? You will generally have alternate right Republicans and center right Republicans, because the values that you currently fight for are antithetical in nature. In fact, we think there's already a problem even with the alt-right parties in status quo, that before that the minority Republicans or minority groups having an issue with how Trump presented himself and the beliefs and ideals that he forwarded in status quo. I don't think you'll be able to stop this mutation of discussion. In fact, I think you make it a lot worse, because all this entire time you were strategically ambiguous about the positions that Trump wanted to take in the election and what sort of statements was he willing to make. But suddenly when you see a viable alternative, one that's popular in nature, even though it tarnishes your value, you're suddenly going to change your position and you're going to dilute that position, ladies and gentlemen. I think what it does is that you're never going to be able to, one, maintain the problematic position. But secondly, I think what it does is that it tells traditionalist conservatives who don't believe in those values that we're going to abandon shit at any point, every time we don't think there's a viable ability for us to absolutely win. Because I think you also have to account for voters who don't believe in those ideals as well. But secondly, when it comes to Democrats, right, I think what is important as well, ladies and gentlemen, is that when it comes to policies, you have to assume that some ability for a discussion to occur. But when you have to support an alt-right party that actively tells people that we are going to be disingenuous and only target ethnic minorities, you're never going to be able to reach their bipartisanship in Congress, ladies and gentlemen. So even if you lose, you'll never be able to come to that discussion table to begin with, because they will never be able to identify with you, or they never want to create an amendable relationship with you. come to cooperation rather than not at all.
Thank you for that speech. Start with closing opposition. Can we have the member of opposition?
Mr. Speaker, if anyone talks about you, like how government bench talks about the alt-right, I think it's fairly reasonable that you feel attacked, that you feel under siege, that everyone calls you a bigot at first without asking you why do you feel this way. I'll address those concerns and I'll tell you the outcome, extending a little bit more from opening opposition. So opening up talk to you about how alt-right is necessary to, like, this is why this is important for the Republican Party. I'll tell you how isolating the alt-right essentially leads to the disintegration and leading to a dysfunctional democracy, and I'm not exaggerating, I'll tell you why later on. But rebuttals first. Number one, they tell you in Jay's speech that the alt-right are generally just people who are genuinely bigoted and racist, and they're not doing anything out of fear and legitimate courtesy as these kids. Number one, it's just factually untrue, right? A lot of racism are born out of fear, albeit irrational fear. So, for example, when people started killing the Jews, it's because, or hating on the Jews, is because they fear that they will take over or like dominate the economics and leading other people like out of like the economic establishment. Or when people started hating on any race, it's because of some fear that that race will cost you some of your rights. So it's not fair and not okay to just tell these people you're bigoted and therefore you should fuck off. No, thank you. Even if these fears are irrational and these people are racist, to them, they will never think that they are racist. To them, these concerns are legitimate, and therefore it's important for us to engage with them and tell them and at least let them feel that they do have a say in this democratic institution. Why is this Jay also told you that these people are just fundamentally and ideologically different. Even if they have some similar ideologies, they're different in execution. One, this is status quo. Even within the Republican establishment, people have differing opinion, and we think that's perfectly fine because that's what democracy is about. No, thank you. We think that at least in the status quo, when the Republican Party is able to engage and improve alt-right, you are able to have them at discussion, you meet in the middle ground with them on what their concerns are. Thirdly, they told you, if these people are so bigoted, these are not the voters that we want to rely on anyway. Sure, you don't want to rely on them, but you also have to suffer consequences of losing the elections of the people. And furthermore, in my substantive, I will tell you why it will lead to a dysfunctional democracy. But how do we change this? We think it's that the inclusion of these people into the Republican Party is at least I'll tell you how we're able to moderate their ideologies. It's not entirely impossible. They want compromises.
Look, I think your premise of needing to understand them in order to make them better relies on an inability to know explicitly what their positions are. But given that we do know what their positions are, why do we need to attempt to negotiate and mediate rather than trying to attempt like a more strategic position, especially with them?
Yeah, I think we understand their positions are, i.e. we know that they're anti-immigration, we know that they fear that they lose their jobs, but we don't know why they fear so much about losing their jobs, and we don't understand why they hate like immigrants so much. So those are the things that are largely losing in liberal media or in mainstream media, and that's the gap of like knowledge that we are currently missing. So I'll tell you what. So this is my substantive. We think that the political legitimacy of any party is in their ability to deliver results. So for example, when Obama was able to achieve like a lot of stuff, people started loving him because they see him as someone who can deliver those results. What happens now is that right from the start, we told you that the birth of the alt-right movement is out of this concern that the Republican establishment is just not delivering any results. People are losing jobs, they're not getting what they want, right? So the problem is this, that when, number one, not only when you disassociate yourself from the alt-right, number one, is the explicit isolation and abandonment of your own supporters. Recognize this, that any other Republican candidate would not have stood a chance against Hillary Clinton. And I think
You're
it's
right.
only because of the existence of Trump and the alt-right people who put together the support for Trump that the Republican Party actually have a shot in winning this election. And it's highly possible that we'll win. And regardless of what you think about this alt-right, we think it's highly immoral and not the right thing to do for a party to just abandon those people who put you into power. Secondly, it cripples the democratic institution because it creates the distrust of the entire political establishment. Whereas it is, people are already fearing, like when you look at articles on Slate and Vox, right? I can't believe it. When you compare like the problems of both, Hillary will have like one problem with her, like email server, and then like Trump list will have 200. Like the mainstream media is not even trying to pretend that they are fair, and you cannot blame these people for not trusting the mainstream media. So what happens? They create this alternative, like on Reddit, they have their own discussion, they have their own alternative form of discussion that creates a huge gap in this huge gap in our discourse that just creates that kind of separate and polarity in our democracy. No, thank you. So yeah. Next. So when there's lesser and lesser engagement between the two parties, right? i.e. we're talking about the distrust of the alt-right versus, the distrust of the alt-right towards the establishment, and there's lesser and lesser engagement between the mainstream media and the alt-right concerns, we think you create more distaste towards each other. I.e. in future, there will be just more and more name calling of people calling each other either bigoted or like useless people who can't get things done. We think those things are fundamentally an assault to democracy. We think at least right now, whatever disagreements that Democrats and Republicans have between themselves, we still have the hope, and can find comfort in knowing that democratic institutions can still work. At least I know that if I have concerns, my voice can still be heard. This is the fundamental comfort that you are taking away from the alt-right, and you're telling them that no one will listen to you and no one will care about you. We think it's exactly these kinds of sentiments that will fuel and create more Donald Trumps in future and put more alt-right candidates into the mainstream political party and create more and more inability for Congress and Parliament to pass policies because of this inability for two sides to meet in the middle. These are things that we are never willing to stand for. Very proud to
Surrender your feet. This is very Roman, isn't it? Alright, thanks for that speech. Close off the government bank so we have to govern good peace.
I told you're a really nice person.
What's the triangle?
What's a triangle? What is a triangle? Speaker, the Gettysburg Address will be a lot different today and after the alt-right stays unopposed for the Republican Party. Not a remark of bipartisanship, not a remark of celebration of conservative values, taking of the Republican Party by Abe Lincoln himself. That is something that as the Republican Party, we would regret, not something that we would prefer. With that being said, I'm going to talk about three important clashes in this debate. The general outcome of the Republican Party in terms of elections, officers, and so on. Secondly, what is good for the branding of the Republican Party. And thirdly, this really hilarious issue that I really just want to make fun of. Can you moderate the alt-right party? So let's look at the first issue, the outcomes of the Republican Party. That the general characterization of the alt-right party that we have to rely on here is that they are making up a huge block of supporters for Donald Trump and therefore the Republican Party, and therefore we can get him in office, and that is a good thing. A few responses to this. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, we say that firstly, as we did in Jay's speech, we reject the notion that these support primarily and ultimately came from the alt-right party. We have to recognize to a very large extent the reason Donald Trump gets a lot of supporters is because people are sick and tired of how things are in status quo and things that would have been run by the Democrat Party. This means that a good chunk of people who are either centrist right, or just pure right, just simply wants the Republican Party to be in office. We think, considering how unpopular it really is for you to be an alt-right anyway, it's quite likely that the reason Donald Trump is getting a lot of supporters right now is because of these main concerns that centrist rights and rights generally have. That's why they would still vote for Donald Trump. Especially when, if you were to look at the key difference between the alt-right party as well as the Republicans, they claim that, well, their stances are very similar. It's just the one has a megaphone, one doesn't have a megaphone. You should go buy it, right? But the problem, however, is the execution itself is different. And what I mean by this execution, well, for example, where the Republican parties may have a stand for anti-immigration or anti-immigration policy, or more stricter immigration policies and more jobs to be provided and to be protected, it's all for the sake of jobs, opportunities, and security. But the execution used by alt-right parties is because of race, is because of the identity that they hold as being the superior and dominant race within the country themselves, especially when, and the evidence of this is the explicit rationale that was used by the alt-right party. So what does this mean ultimately? This means ultimately that you do not necessarily get that much of a support from the alt-right party, and there is no huge outcome that would have come if you were to oppose, no bad outcomes that would come on the Republican Party if you were to oppose them. Let's look at CO under this issue. Thank you. CO says that Republicans and also alt-right feel abandoned because, they're not being taken care of, right? The problem here, firstly, right, ladies and gentlemen, is that it serves very little purpose for you to argue this, because we say that if it means you gain the support of the alt-right party, the alt-right group, a group that will not only demean the character of your party, let us recognize this. The thing about conservative stances is that it is ideological in nature. But once you attach a very personalized stance by the alt-right movement, then you start making it an ideological party. But you start making it a personal and bad character-based party. And we think this is a bad problem. This is a trade-off that we're not willing to take, and therefore we will deny the support of the alt-right movement if it does come down to that. No, thank you. So we think that the outcomes of the Republican Party will not necessarily be that diminished under this side of the House. Let's look at what is good for branding, right? Because they say that, and this is more of a direct engagement with CO, that, well, now we create this environment by the Republican Party where it's all about pointing out who is the bigger and not really claiming that much of a support from people in general. First, I'd like to say to this is, especially mentioned by Jay's speech, is that assumes this will even stop, because the character and the environment as they exist right now consists of people with different ideological views anyway. So this means that even if you were to not a movement, that this particular nature that the Republican Party faces or perpetuates is still going to be there anyway. So there's very little utility that it does create for the branding of the Republican Party anyway, as opposed to the bad branding that the Republican Party would have when it comes for the purposes of gaining people who are on the fence, as well as getting support in Congress. Because let us recognize this, that in Congress, we need to get Democrats to be as bipartisan as possible. What this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that we need to be seen as a party with just different ideologies and a party with ideologies that are willing to maybe perhaps compromise so that they can also compromise with us, as opposed to one that is personalized and characterized as one with bad morals, as one as bigots, and as one of those who are racist in nature. That makes it less likely for you to get any support of those on the fence, as well as those in Congress, and we think there is a big problem with that. But the second problem when it comes to branding is that it gives Trump very little incentives to be mediated should he even win to begin with. Because let's recognize, that Trump in the past, the support of the alt-right movement, where he just started running, he was mediated by the Republican Party and was able to give into that mediation. Now that he has the support of the alt-right party, and now that he feels that he can be now that he feels that the alt-right party is supporting him, he has very little reason to even keep that support. He has very little reason to be mediated anyway, and we think his problem is me.
So Jay agreed that the Republican Party is disadvantaged in their dynamic with the alt-right, and this debate assumes that they have a popularity worth being a threat to the Republican Party. Can you tell us, if the Republican Party is split with an unguaranteed amount of independents or Democrats, where we've already given you an analysis as to why it's unlikely that you will get that in the foreseeable future, how will you maintain any sort of position of power as we presented in analysis for opening opposition?
One voter bloc, as opposed to a lot of different people outside the alt-right who you would be able to give support of, which you will lose if you were to get the brand by the alt-right party as well. I've already given you a lot of the people who would have lost their support for the Republican Party, like the centrist rights, the rights, as well. Point is, at this point, there is a numbers game right now, and we can't really define support in Congress as well by the Democrats themselves. Very quickly, can you even moderate very clear right now that it was an explicit rationalization by the alt-right party themselves, so it's very hard for you to even change their minds, even if you give them what they want anyway. Mr. Speaker, let's not have Lincoln roll in his grave. More importantly, let's not let the elephant roll in his grave as well, the Republican Party. So an elephant rolling would have been funny. You're here.
Thank you for that speech. We close off debate to the opposition leader.
Mr. Speaker, three main clashes in today's debate. First and most importantly, who is his alt-right? Because Gov and opposition have been disagreeing on who they actually are. Secondly, what's in the best interest of the Republican Party? Thirdly, what's in the best interest of better policies, better decision making, and all that. Let's go directly into the first one, because a large contingent or whatever that government wanted to present to you is contingent on alt-right, a bunch of racist, prejudiced bigots with no capability of irrational thought, probably no education, grew up in the hills, those sort of things. That's the way they characterize them. And in essence, that is the problem. That's why the alt-right goes up in the first place. We need, in order to prevent them, in order to moderate them, there needs to be an understanding of what shaped them. So let's look deeper into this analysis of the alt-right. Who are the alt-right? The alt-right, while largely are made up of white Americans, are individuals who, as we have said earlier, are under a siege mentality. What do you mean by the siege mentality? These are individuals who have been accused of having white privilege all their life. These are individuals who, conservatives, are under attack by the atheists, are under attack by the LGBT movement, are under attack by the feminists. They're under attack by the Black Lives Matter movement. They're under attack by basically anyone and everyone, anti-gun gun control groups. Everyone is taking pot shots at the alt-right, or at these groups of Americans. That, in essence, created that siege mentality within them that caused them to feel all this angst and all this anger bubbling up, to see that everyone else aligning along racial, gender, or other forms of identity and using that as a platform to attack the alt-right. Furthermore, what the alt-right, that attack alone wasn't the end of it. The problem is that the alt-right don't feel these benefits. They've been told that you have white privilege, you should enjoy everything. But the alt-right is made up of numerous Americans like Mike Clyde, who graduated from University of Wisconsin, told that you'll be able, told that you'll be able to get a job. But at the end of the day, is paying back student loans of $200,000, $300,000, and he can't get a job because immigrants are taking the jobs. These are the individuals that make up the alt-right. Individuals who have lost their jobs, have lost their chances, who are feeling downtrodden, who don't have avenues to improve themselves, to pull them out of the situation. What was their response when, whenever they wanted to voice it out, they were told, check your white privilege. Assumes, right? You're a white male, you should be able to find a way that there is no problem with your life. That's why these individuals are speaking out. That's why the alt-right was born. Because individuals, one, continuously attacked them, two, did not consider the problems that they face and did not try to find the root cause of it. Thirdly, did not listen to them when they raised those sort of issues cause the aggressive nature of the alt-right about. It forced them to do they force more and more outright to come about. Like what Debo told you, you'll have 100 more Donald Trumps after this, and it will keep happening. You will never have a more acceptable society unless you're willing to engage with them and you're willing to allow them to moderate by providing them with the end goals that they need, especially when it comes to jobs, healthcare, and those essential items. Before I move on, closing.
True or not, the alt-right movement branding is perceived generally to be bigoted. Are you okay with this branding being attached to the Republican Party and any potential loss that will be suffered by this?
Okay, they say the alt-right is being branded as being bigoted. Is that so? Probably. Does it matter? No, because at the end of the day, the alt-right is backing the Republican Party. They are talking to us about potential seats that the Republicans might be able to take away the Democrats. I'm sorry, have you been reading the news? Democrats don't really vote away from the Democrats. There's a reason why it's divided like that, right? The alt-rights are a large majority of them are Republican supporters who have been disenfranchised. They fell away because, like what we told you earlier, the Republican Party has not taken care of their needs. The Republican Party has not looked at the root cause behind their problems and seeken to address it. Under our side of the house, that branding that you want is better for the Republican Party because they get the alt-rights on their side. They're able to show a united front. What gives a group or what gives a country a better idea? Sit down. A better idea of how good your party is. Is it having internal fights, pushing away half of your supporters just because you don't agree with them? Or is it by being able to form a cohesive party, being able to listen to the points of view of those that are opposed to you and function like a democratic party, function like a party that actually listens to its people without passing judgment? Because on our side of the house, we tell you that's a better alternative when the Republican Party is able to show that they are able to moderate their more extreme members, that they are able to find root causes of problems, address it, and bring about positive, tangible outcomes. On why this is better for everyone as a whole, when you talk about the Republican Party or any party for that matter, and you want better decisions made, decisions have to include every point of view, they have to include every group of individuals. When you isolate the alt-right, when you push them away, and you don't include them into the discussion, then you're not necessarily dealing with your problems, which means the policies that you're passing, the ideas that you're trying to bring about, don't cater for the benefit of everyone. They don't cater to the best benefit of the people, nor do they give you the best possible decision. How can you get the best possible decision when a large majority of people that are hurt, that are upset, are not included in your discussion? They want a political party that functions more like a dictatorship. Outside, we want a party that listens to its people, that functions like a democracy, and upholds those very values. We are very proud to oppose.